Good evening, everyone. I am LaRonda Scott with Daymark Realty, and I am excited to be coming back with you live for another episode of Thriving Together. Last week, I took a bit of a break to join Tribor, which is a Triangle Board of Real Estate. Oh my goodness. Triangle Board of Realtors. I got the name wrong. It was Realtors last week, and we had a very important conversation about housing affordability and equity challenges in the Triangle area. So now I am back this evening with a very special guest, Mr. Levell Exum, and I can't thank you enough for being with me. How are you this evening?
I am fine and dandy, LaRonda. Thanks for having me on.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you on. I was introduced to Mr. Exum very briefly at an NCREA meeting. And for those of you who don't know, it's the North Carolina Real Estate Investors Association. And then from there, I reached out to him. We had never really, I guess, had a full fledged conversation, but you were so gracious and participated in a panel that I had in partnership with Renewed Covenant Christian Center. And from that and watching a video that another interview that you did, I was just really inspired by you and your story. So I knew I had to have you on for one of my lives. So thank you for accepting my invitation.
My pleasure, LaRonda.
So tell everyone just a little bit about yourself.
Wow.
Is that a
I've been
hard
here.
question?
No. It's just that I've been here on planet Earth a long time. And when you say a little bit about myself,
A
you know,
little bit. Well, I only say introductory because we'll dig in a little bit more as we go.
okay. Presently, LaRonda, I invest in real estate in North Carolina, single family houses for the most part in North Carolina and Virginia, basically within a 100-mile radius of Durham. And I buy flip properties, buy, fix them up, and resell them to homeowners or rent them to individuals who'd like to have the opportunity to rent with the option to buy. I've been a licensed real estate agent now for 51 years. My uh, email address is xml@aol. I'm really not that old now, okay?
You're saying that because of the AOL, but hey, it's
Yes,
true.
yeah.
I met with someone not too long ago and I asked her, "Are you going to send me a Zoom link or a Google Meet link?" And she's like, "No, I still use Skype." And I had no idea that Skype was even still a thing.
Okay.
So now you said that you've been investing, but of course you didn't come here, you didn't jump in investing. You may have had, like I used to, I like to call former lives. So how did you even get into this? Who are you before real estate?
Get into real estate. I got
Mhm.
into, well, I applied for law school and decided if I did not get into law school, I would get a real estate license. I got the real estate license and was admitted to law school. So that's how I got into real estate. I had a good friend at that time, Joe Davis, here in Durham, who
Mhm.
was mover and shaker in real estate. And I thought, well, gosh, I could do that.
And do what you have been doing. But law school was kind of like an unlikely thing for someone considering your background and the story that you shared.
Well, LaRonda,
To some,
the what?
I said some would think, I'll put it that way.
Okay. I have this compulsion to seek education. And I started out, well, my mother insisted I go to college. We were reared on a tobacco farm in the eastern part of North Carolina, but she insisted that there were five of us, and all five of us went to college. And neither of us had any college debt when we finished college. So education is something that I have fervently pursued for years. And law school is where I ended up.
I thought it was really amazing again to hear about where you grew up and just some of the circumstances. But you said that despite humble beginnings, they made sure all five of you went to school and no debt. Tell them about where you grew up and what that looked like for you.
Well, LaRonda, I was reared on a tobacco farm in the eastern part of North Carolina, Wilson, Wilson County, and growing up, we grew everything that we ate. We grew the vegetables, the chicken, the pork, the beef. Uh, and when I was in the first grade, we did not have electricity in our home. The day that I finished college, we did not have indoor plumbing in
Mm.
our home. Uh, the farm that we grew up on, uh, my father, by the time uh, I'd finished college, had decided he was going to create a subdivision. So there's a little subdivision called X Woods on the road that we grew up in. There were about 15 houses uh,
Mhm.
in the subdivision that he created.
So he kind of sparked real estate in you, as well then.
He did, LaRon. I guess for the most part, what I got from him was a drive to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm. 'Cause I know you mentioned that when your I believe when your daughter graduated, you told her, "Okay, if you don't buy a car, what?"
Well, I told her that I'd help her buy $1 million worth of real estate. And I bought her a used car when she was in high school. And after she graduated from high school, she did start to buying properties. She bought 5 properties and uh, got married. And I guess they had other priorities. Uh,
Mhm.
so she ended up still has 2 of the 5 houses that she bought, and that was in the mid 90s. So they are paid for now. Now, what I told her when she was in finishing college that if she did not buy a new car again, I'd help her buy $1 million worth of real estate. And what I told her, Rhonda, is that slavery in our society is illegal. That was a system, among other things, in which one person went out and worked, usually in the fields, all day, every day, and somebody else got 100% of the fruits of their labor. And I told her,
Mhm.
you can't do that anymore. However, most people who rent, this is true, especially if they're single, will pay the landlord 25% of everything they earn. So if a landlord has 4 rental properties and each person is paying him or her 25% of everything they earn, then that's tantamount to having one person go out and work for you all day, every day, and bring you everything they earn. So it's easy to see how a person who owns real rental property can get ahead in our society or
Yeah.
accumulate wealth. But what about the people who have to pay 25% of everything they earn to a landlord? How can they
Mhm.
get ahead in our society? You mentioned home ownership earlier. There's a program through, and I don't know whether I mentioned this to you earlier or not, NACA, Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, in
Mhm.
which a person can buy a house with no down payment, no closing costs, no perfect credit, uh, and no closing costs. Uh,
Wow.
I worked with that program for about 15 years, uh,
Mhm.
and we lobbied Congress for uh, different things in the area of real estate.
Now you were saying not perfect credit. So is that so when you work with NACA, do they help you in terms of establishing credit or getting yourself, I guess, buyer ready?
Well, basically, Rhonda, what NACA says is that show us that for the past 2 years you've been able to pay your bills on time and we're good to go. So they're not interested
Oh,
in creating a credit score. You don't need a credit score at all. Just
okay.
show that you're able to pay your bills, and that satisfies that requirement. And when I was working with the program, sometimes people would think that with no credit score, you'd be able to buy a house with no down payment, no closing costs, no credit score. You'd think that the default rate among this population would be high, but it was no higher than, in fact, it was less than the default rate with FHA loans.
I can imagine it would be, the same or even less because this is such a great opportunity that's been afforded to people. Considering that normally when you're applying for a loan, you're at the mercy of an algorithm, online, and that credit score haunts you. But people have such different circumstances. Like you said, if I'm able to show that I've paid my bills, whatever that is, for the past, you said 2 years?
2 years, and sometimes
Yeah.
as little as 12 months.
Okay. Then you're opening the door to ownership. That's huge.
It is. Now, uh, with the program, you can actually buy the interest rate down. You can do that with most mortgages, but with most mortgages, it does make sense to buy the rate down. But with that, I tell you this, Loranda, uh, this was about maybe 15 years ago. I helped a young lady buy a
Mhm.
house in Zebulon, and here in North Carolina, and she brought her interest rate down to 1/3 of 1%, not 1%, 1/3 of 1%. She bought a new $174,000 house again in Zebulon, and her
Uh-huh.
monthly payment PITI was $839, as I remember, and because the interest rate was only 1/31% of her
Mhm.
PITI, only about $30 went to interest. The remainder went for reduce the principal balance. Now she was able
Right.
to sell that house after 84 months, and she was able to get back everything that she had paid for principal, tax, interest, and insurance over that 84-month period of time.
Wow. Now, one, that's impressive, but again, that really positions someone to make some changes in, changes in their life. And not only sell and buy new, but then you think about even having equity in the home, what it allows people to do. I've heard people in terms of starting businesses, sending children to school, things of that nature, just gives you a lot.
It can give you a leg up when it comes to having the resources with which to do other things.
Hmm. So, what keeps you motivated? Because real estate is not an easy industry to be in, whether you're doing the traditional buy, sell, or even investing like you do. What kind of drives you?
Gosh, LaRonda, for me, uh, the desire to have, do, and be more is what drives me. So I have a burning desire. My father had a third grade education, and he was able to assemble some small farms. Uh,
Mhm.
and I knew when I was in the ninth grade that I was going to college. So I thought to myself, what is it that I can do with a college degree that will elevate the standard of living of my family as much as my father had with a third grade education? And so
Mhm.
education and entrepreneurship is what uh, gave me a path to where I am now. And entrepreneurship is something that I got from him.
Yeah, entrepreneurship, it does give you a lot of not just flexibility, but really freedoms. But entrepreneurship isn't easy either.
Well, when you mention freedom, Miranda, it does give you freedom. I taught for a while, and when I left education, I told my colleagues whom I'd left behind that when you go into business for yourself, you only have to work a half day. But I had to hasten to add, and it really doesn't matter which 12 hours of the day it is.
Mhm. Right. Now, with your investing, you said that you flip houses, you buy and flip houses, and then you do some hold. But of course, with I'll say with the price of properties and things rising now, there may be some people out there that had an inkling, had a desire to invest, but they're just not sure if this is the right time for them. Is there ever a bad time to invest, or what would you say to a person listening to you right now?
Well, LeBron, it doesn't matter what is happening in our society. Chances are somebody's going to find a way to make a profit. Now, I want to raise my hands because I want to be one of those.
Me too.
So yes, I don't think any time is a bad time to buy real estate. It's just a matter of figuring out how to buy it in such a manner that you can make a profit at it.
What recommendations, like, how does a person even get started?
Desire. Desire is a great equalizer. It gives a person of ordinary talent and ability the opportunity to excel at whatever it is that they have a desire to have, do, or be.
That's very true. Very true. Is there any particular type, I guess, in terms of there's what flipping and wholesaling and then buying and holding? Is there any particular type of investing that you would recommend to a newbie?
Well, when you say a newbie, if a person, the first order of business is to buy a personal residence. Uh,
Hmm.
and for people who want to then uh,
Yes.
accumulate rental property, uh, there's a market now called DSCR loans, and in which
Hmm.
you can get a mortgage to buy a house, rehab it. And so you can virtually buy a house, rehab it with 100% of borrowed money. And so uh, there's just lots of opportunities now. It's just a matter of knowing that the resources are available. And there are several number of organizations in the area. In addition to NCREA, there's Triangle Area Real Estate Investors
Yeah,
Association,
that's
as well
true.
as a host of other organizations which provide education for individuals who have an interest in flipping properties. Uh,
Hmm.
there, one of the things that happens to us, Laurent, is that we tend to like to network
Yeah.
with other people in real estate, and how we see things matters.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, it doesn't matter too much what sport a person plays, basketball, football, soccer, lacrosse. Chances are the more they practice the sport, the better they'll become at their game.
Right.
Real estate is my game. So the networking sessions that I attend, I call these my practice sessions. So I go to practice at least 5 times a week.
That's very because it keeps you learning. You never know who you're gonna meet, but what you're also learning and just absorbing.
Right. And basically, what I like to do is to build in the older days, we call them a Rolodex, but to build
I know what a Rolodex is.
contact management system of subcontractors who would work on properties, be they electricians, plumbers, carpenters,
Mhm.
etc.
I get tickled though. There's someone that's going to listen to this and they're gonna be like Rolodex, and it's hard to imagine. We used to have it sitting on a desk and we would literally roll it and the contact cards would just flip through.
Right. So you know what green stamps are too, then.
I do.
Oh, okay. You're telling your age now.
I am. Maybe I should say, oh no, I don't know what any of that is. I've never heard of that. What is that? It reminds me, I remember I've worked in nonprofit for like 20 years, and I was talking to some team members of mine. Now, this was way back in what, maybe 2010, 2011. And no, it was about 2014. And we were talking about 9/11. And here I am saying, everyone remembers where they were. And I said, I was getting dressed for work and I was heading out because I was in pharmaceutical sales at the time. And my two team members go, oh, I was in ninth grade in French class. And I was thinking, oh, wow, let's stop talking. We'll stop talking now.
Yeah.
So, and then you do once a month, a kind of like a tour for individuals that are interested in investing. And what that told me is that you're not just the person who goes to practice and learns, but you like to share and pour into people as well.
Rhonda, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I heard a short on YouTube with
Mhm,
Denzel Washington, and he said during the first third of your life you should learn, the second third you should earn, and the third return. So I'm in
mhm,
the uh, the final third of my life, so I am
mhm,
returning. So every third Saturday of the month, excuse me, I do a free Vixen's Wheel tour. Uh, Typically of 3 houses in Rocky Mountain. The person interested in real estate will have the opportunity to see the before, during, and after rehab in this process. Oftentimes at these tours, they're typically about 30, 35 people there.
mhm.
There's likely to be contractor, home inspector, electrician, plumber, just subs, where a person can start to build a contact database of people they may want to assemble for their team when they're ready to buy a property.
Okay, so it's a great way to learn and see the process, like you were saying, start to finish, but building that Rolodex because you get to meet and connect with some people that are on that tour also.
Yes, that's correct, Loranda. And then what happens also is that a person will have the opportunity to get some ideas as to what it costs to replace a window, replace a roof, replace floor, uh, paint a house, etc., so that
Mhm.
you start to build a body of knowledge with respect to what to do to a property, as well as the cost associated with rehabbing that property.
And that's good to know because so you don't have to be a general contractor to do this. So people don't talk themselves out of it, find another way to talk themselves out of it. But it's important for you to get to know and understand what some of these costs are. But that's through experiencing you maybe your free tours, but then also with some practice.
Uh, Laranda, education is a shortcut to experience. If we could live long enough, we could experience everything. But
Yeah.
education is the shortcut to acquire experience. And so the tours for folk
Yeah.
who want to get experience in flipping houses. The individuals who are there have experience, and so it's just a matter of getting educated. And again, that's a shortcut to experience.
So if you were able to talk to you, Mr. Exum 51 years ago, out of what you've learned, what would you tell him to be prepared for?
LaRonda, when my kids were small, I've got four children, I did not give them an allowance. I thought to myself, what is it that I have learned about life that if I could get them to understand intrinsically that I would have served them well? And so
Mhm.
one statement was every problem has a solution, and the other was things are neither good nor bad. It's our thinking relative to them that makes them so. So my children could write those sentences repetitively, and I would give I'd pay them to write the sentences. And so uh, if I had to, 51 years ago, the advice that I gave them, having writing those two sentences, what I would have given myself.
So
That,
you
that
would have them, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I want them to understand intrinsically that every problem has a solution. Now, I had an office in downtown Durham in 1986. So my oldest daughter, who's now 54, she was
Mhm.
in the office one day. And at that time, we were just recognizing that AIDS was a problem in our society. So I asked her if there was a solution to the problem of AIDS. Excuse me. And she thought for a second she knew the answer should be. And so she finally said yes. And I said, you're right. We would be idiots spending millions of dollars looking for a solution that doesn't exist. So every problem has a solution.
That does. Now, the sentences that you would have them to write, were there particular ones? Did I miss that? Or were particular statements you have them to write? And
Yeah.
where did that come from for you? How did you even arrive to say, I think this is something that will work for them?
Well, LaRonda, with a third grade education, my father instilled, I guess, some characteristics in me that I, I
Mhm.
I liked and thought, what is it that I can instill in my children that, in essence, that I could pass the same type of drive or understanding about society along to them? And so
Yeah.
that was what I thought. If I can get them to understand intrinsically that every problem has a solution, and that things are neither good nor bad, it depends on how we look at it.
I'm sitting there just imagining them writing the statements, and it just reminds me of getting up and having what is it, doing gratitude or affirmations to yourself. And they say, do your affirmations, talk to yourself. Some people say have a conversation with yourself in the mirror, but that repetition, you start believing those things, and it really starts to kind of drive you in your day to day.
It does, Loranda. I smile and laugh because I am now embarking upon. I like to think of myself as kind of a human engineer. That uh, uh, now I was telling you that my father had sent the five of us to school. So when it comes to education, I thought when my kids were small, what is it that I can get them to uh, what is that I want for them to do? So I decided that I wanted each of my four children to have two academic degrees. My youngest daughter, who's 38, finished med school at UNC, gosh, 10 or 12 years ago. And so now each of them has two academic degrees. Two are medical doctors, and they both happen to be psychiatrists. The oldest daughter is electrical engineer. She works with Shell, and Shell wants to be the leader when it comes to establishing charging EV charging stations. So she's in charge
Mhm.
of half of the country providing EV charging stations for them.
Wow. So again, all of that was possible with what you had them writing, like, okay, here's your allowance. But at the same time you're doing this, in the beginning, you may be thinking, I just want the money, not realizing what you're kind of programming in to make it all possible.
Well, I like the word you use, Lauren, programming. When my
Yeah.
youngest two kids were small, uh, their bedrooms were upstairs. And when I
Hmm.
say small, probably 5, 7, I would go into their bedrooms at night and rub them on their forehead. And I told my son, who's now 40, that he was going to be a neurosurgeon. So I would rub him until start to move as if you were about to wake up. And in
Yeah.
my daughter's room, I told her that she was going to be a cardiologist. And this went on for years. And until my son was in the 10th grade, he wanted to be a neurosurgeon. Now, my daughter, who is a psychiatrist, that's the only thing she's ever wanted to be as a medical doctor. And I
Okay.
don't, now, right or wrong, Loranda, that,
But you
that's
were, what do we say? You were speaking it into them, these things, and just greatness. And I think that's a huge mindset. I think we had a conversation about that. Your
okay.
mindset really dictates what you do and what you achieve.
It does. The mindset is everything. It's kind of like a gyroscope. Once a gyroscope is set, it's going to go in a certain direction. So with the
Hmm.
mindset, we want to move in a certain prescribed direction.
Talk about speaking something over someone. You did it literally.
LaRonda, I'm working on a plan now that I want people to speak over themselves,
Hmm.
and that has to do with weighing what we want to weigh.
Tell me more.
Okay,
Now I know I've listened, but the other people listening to us tonight, they don't. So I do. I want you to share.
okay, all right. So you're familiar with the Lady of Justice with the blindfold on and a
Hmm.
very outstretched arm, the bow. Well, with calories, if we put more calories into one bowl, then the body burns, then the other side goes up in weight. So our
Hmm.
objective is to balance the caloric intake with the calories that we consume. Now, LaRonda, every package of food that we consume and every beverage that we drink has a calorie content on it.
Right.
Now, if you ask the average person how many calories they need a day, chances are they will not know.
Hmm.
However, if you ask Google or Siri, what do you get if you multiply your weight by 12?
Hmm.
You'll get the approximate number of calories that you need per day. So from then on, it's just a matter of consuming those calories that
Right.
we need to maintain if we want to lose weight. Oh gosh, Rhonda, that's another thing too. Did I ask you to name one thing other than weight that we as humans set as a goal to lose?
No, you didn't. You
Can
said
you
to
think of,
lose.
yes, can you think of one thing other than weight that we as humans set as a goal to lose?
To lose. I can't think of anything else.
Most people cannot. My
No.
my daughter, I don't know whether I should say this or not.
All
My daughter,
right, don't let her get you.
when she was in either, I think it was about the 12th grade, I asked her that question. And I can remember, like 7-Eleven, when things have an impact upon us, we remember where they were. Well, I
Yeah.
remember where I was when she answered this question. She looked me dead in the eye and said, their virginity. And
You weren't ready for
she,
that answer, were you?
I was not. So she was going to Chicago, where one daughter was in doing her residency, and I called when they were at dinner, and
Uh-huh.
I said to the daughter who was in residency, I said, "Look, when your sister comes back home, I wanted to come back with a prescription for birth control." But for the most part, most of us can't think of anything now. So the brain is not programmed to help us lose, not even hair or teeth. The brain is not programmed around it to help us lose anything. So we're kind of kidding ourselves. We're attempting to deceive
Mhm.
ourselves when we ask the brain to help us lose weight. In fact, most folk who lose weight will end up gaining it back. But what if, but what, LaRonda, I got a pilot's license in 1980, 86. I was 40
Uh-huh.
at the time. And on your pilot's, I don't fly anymore. On your pilot's license, they stamp your weight. I weighed 165. And so I
Mhm.
decided I was going to weigh 165 the rest of my life. So this morning I weighed 160, 165 point, no, 166.1. Uh,
Mhm.
and so I write down the calories that I consume each meal. Now, what
Right.
that does, it helps me to it's kind of like writing things repetitively. If you write down what you're consuming, it's easier to match the calorie burn with the calories consumed.
It may also prevent you from eating something that's like, oh, I don't want to have to write that down.
Right. Now, the other thing, Luranda, is that most of us had rather be motivated by the rewards of success as opposed to the penalty of failure.
Mhm.
And excuse me, when it comes to losing weight, that's probably something that most of us don't want to put an effort to accomplish. But when we
Mhm.
say weigh what we want to weigh, most of us would like to weigh
Yeah.
what we want to weigh. And I eat on salad plates as opposed to the larger plates, so the portions of food. And so
Mhm.
most of us have been admonished that during our life to eat everything on our plate, but if we have a smaller plate, that helps reduce the calories consumed.
Mhm. You are such I'm trying to you are such an intentional person. It's like, and again, I'm getting to know you, but I don't know, you're not haphazardly just walking through your days. You're just intentional about how you move about this life. And I just love that about you. And it really does. It motivates you. It motivates people.
Well, Rhonda, my objective is to help people in our transitory lives, a point in time that we merge from the great mystery until we merge back into that mystery to
Mhm.
get the most out of that transitory experience. And some of the things that we think may not be accurate. So having accurate information, I think, goes a long way to helping us have a better life.
It does indeed. And you've had, I've heard law school, pilot license, investor real estate. You've had some interesting former lives.
Yes, North Carolina Central. I made my escape from the farm by by going to college at North Carolina Central University. When I was on the farm, Loranda, I was a member of a 4-H club organization, and
Uh-huh.
at that time, uh, the 4-H clubs had was what was called a short course week in A&T, where you go to campus and stay on campus for a week. And I
Mhm.
was there this week, this particular week, and it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. We were getting up. Now, if I'd been home, I would have been getting up at 5:30 to
Ooh,
go to the fields. And I thought, gosh, I like this lifestyle. So,
I gotta go.
yes, I'm going to college. So, I mentioned I went to Central. I got a BS in accounting and economics, and I got a master's degree and a law degree from Central.
Mhm.
So Central's been real good to me. And
I
I taught
know
business law in the School of Business there, uh,
that is right.
83 to 86.
That is right. So again, you've been poor. You started your third a little early in education, but now
Yeah.
you're visiting it in terms of your sharing and sharing and pouring into other people.
Yes, most of us have the ability to do more than we can imagine that we can do. And
Mhm.
I take the position that whatever we can desire to have, do, or be, the universe will conspire to help us achieve that objective, whatever the objective.
Mhm. I totally agree. Totally agree. I know, you were saying talking about North Carolina Central helped you escape the fields. It made me think of my dad. My dad grew up on a farm as well, and he's the baby of the family. So everyone was going off to school, getting married, going into the service, and it left him there all by himself. And that was him. He's like, "Oh, I'm going into the army because I'm not going to do all this by myself."
That farm work is hard work. It's work that I would not wish upon anyone, LaRonda, but I don't regret having passed that way.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it was definitely a motivator for you, and it gave you something to learn.
Right, right. That it
Well,
that it did. And now I guess I sometimes think and ask tell my children that what my objective was to help them get ahead. And I thought, and I would tell them, and I don't know what it is that you're going to have to do to elevate the standard of living of your children as much as my father had and I for you.
Right.
And I guess several years after that, I thought, well, gosh, I've lived a lot longer than they have. So if they don't know, I mean, if I don't know, why should I expect them to know? So I decided that I want each of my four grandkids to have four rental properties.
Ooh. So have you started that yet, or that's a plan, something that you're going to do?
No, I've started that. I've
Oh,
started.
okay. Okay. So give some advice, because I'm putting it in the atmosphere. You know, if you put it out there, then you're telling on yourself. You got to make it happen. And I don't know if you've met Flo Jacques yet, but she'll hear this and say, "I've been telling you this for a long time." I've been talking investing for a long time, and 2025 is going to be it. What would you say to someone with like me getting started?
Whatever you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. In other words, basically what happens to us, Loranda, is this: to the extent that we can increase our vibrational frequency
Hmm.
about the desire to have, do, or be something, the universe will conspire to, it's kind of like a radio station.
Hmm.
Those dials, if you tune in exactly on the station, you get it clear. But if it's not exactly on the station, you get a lot of
Right.
static. So, to the extent that we can increase our vibrational frequency along with emotions, then the universe will send us information or consciousness that will help us materialize that which we're seeking to have to be.
So I've got to dial in and get on that frequency.
Yes, yes. I mean, once you're there, uh, it's almost as if, well, excuse me, all radio stations that are on always broadcasting. It's just
Mhm.
broadcasting. So all we have to do is to tune into a station and we get that station. Well, consciousness, the universe is just broadcasting information to us all the time. The only thing we have to
Mhm.
do is to tune in on the frequency. And basically, by elevating our vibrational frequency, it's kind of like a magnet. Uh,
Right.
it attracts metal to it. Well, when we have an increased vibrational frequency, it's as if that frequency is attracting information to us.
Mhm. Well, it is time, because again, if I don't, and I talk about this all the time, diversify and having passive income, I want to be able to have that flexibility, and some of those freedoms and the retirement that I desire. And I know that's going to be a key to make that happen for me, as well as making my sure my children and grandchildren, future grandchildren. Wow, that sounds wild for me to say. Um,
The time will come. The time
the
will come.
time will come. The time will come. Well, I'm going to show your information again. This is how you get in touch with Mr. Exum. And like he said, he's got a free tour coming up on May 16th. Did I get that right?
Well, the next one is April. It's coming
Oh,
Saturday, April the
okay.
19th. Every
So
third Saturday of the month.
Okay, so every third Saturday of the month. So this weekend, there's an opportunity for you to go out with him for free, a free tour to see the process of flipping a property with him in Rocky Mount. So here's his number, an email address to get in touch with him. If you can't make it this Saturday, the next one is, I know why I have May 16th in my head, because I put it on my calendar for me to be.
I see.
Yes.
Loranda, if your audience is interested in attending one of the seminars, if they would text me their full name and my number here, their
Okay.
full name and the word tour, I'll add them to my tour notification list. And
Perfect.
so each month they'll get a notification as to the time of the tour as well as the schedule of properties that we will see during that. Typically, it's from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m.
Until 2, 11 to 2. All right, you heard him. Text him at the number that you see below, text tour, and he's going to add you to his list and provide you with that information. And hopefully, the next time you and I chat, we're going to be talking about a deal that I have going on.
Outstanding, LaRonda. Also, when a person texts the word to it, they will give me their full name. Then I'll be able to add that in my Rolodex.
Yep. Hey, that Rolodex was a little bit more, I'll say, consistent. That was the rock compared to technology sometimes these days, because technology is not always a good thing.
Right, right.
I want to thank you again for being with me. I'm looking forward to being on that tour. And I also look forward to sharing with you some more things as they evolve with me as well, because 2025 is going to be the beginning of me creating that portfolio. I'm looking forward to it.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, this has been
I'm
a
tuning
pleasure.
in. I'm dialing in.
Outstanding, outstanding, outstanding.
Thank you so much and have a great evening.
All right, thanks, LaRonda, and you likewise.